Today I've got a list of guilty pleasures for you, 10 bad movies that I actually enjoy. So let's rock it. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. It's great to see you guys. And today I thought it would be fun to talk about some movies that I think you can make the case have been historically considered bad movies, at least by significant segments of the population. But yet at the same time, these are movies that I find that I personally enjoy, despite the bad rap that they may get. Now, of course, what constitutes a bad movie is going to be in the eye of the beholder most of the time, right? Because it's totally subjective, which we would expect. We're talking about movies, opinions vary. And there are many different opinions out there. So this topic in general is totally subjective. And if you're anything like me and you enjoy exploitation films and B movies and lower budget genre films, then there are probably quite a few movies out there that you personally enjoy that maybe the average casual moviegoer or casual movie fan might not appreciate or might consider to be, crappy movies. So when we're talking about bad movies, let's face it, sometimes these things can be a little bit harder to quantify. So for this list, I just tried to choose some films for which there might be some degree of consensus. Movies that the average casual movie fan might not necessarily be into. Maybe the films were poorly received at the box office, they bombed at the box office, or otherwise received a lot of negative fan feedback. But just keep in mind when I say bad movies, I'm using that term very loosely and in a very lighthearted way. I mean, for some of the titles I'm talking about today, it's possible that some of you won't even consider them to be bad movies in the first place, right? That's that whole selective perception thing happening, that subjectivity in motion. So that's my little qualifier for the list today, my little disclaimer. But ultimately, it was one title in particular that gave me the idea for this list. And I just wanted to have a little fun with it and see what other titles I could come up with that people might consider bad movies, but that I actually kind of dig. Okay, so let's get right into this list here. Now, these are not in any particular order. They are not ranked. I've just numbered them so I can keep track of where I'm at in the list, but this is not a ranking list. So my first choice is the movie that gave me the idea for this video, and I wanted to talk about that one right off the bat. Now, this movie is a little bit outside the usual genres I discuss on this channel, but I was browsing my shelves the other day and I came across this movie and started kind of reminiscing about it and how much I used to love watching this movie in the late 80s. And I am talking about Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. I'm talking about the sequel here to the original Eddie and the Cruisers. And of course, I have a double feature pack here, two movies in one package, right? One set. But I don't really care that much about this first Eddie and the Cruisers movie, even though that was the more well-known of the two movies. In fact, I'm guessing most people out there probably weren't even aware that there was a sequel to this first movie. The first movie made a bit of a splash in the 80s. Some of you guys may remember seeing it. The main thing about that first movie is it had a hit song written by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. The song was called On the Dark Side. And, I think the song got more exposure than the movie itself did. But I was never as big of a fan of the first film as I was the second film here. The second one that's my jam. That's the one that I have a lot of nostalgia for. Of course, I like the first film, but I'll tell you, since I've owned this double feature, I still haven't gone back and rewatched the first film. I haven't seen the first film probably since the 80s, but I've watched the sequel, Eddie Lives, a couple times since I've owned it. And that's how I am with this. I don't really care that much about the first movie. The sequel is so much better. Of course, Michael Pare plays a fictional rock star from the 60s, Eddie Wilson, who mysteriously disappears. I guess his car goes off a bridge or something happens. I can't remember. It's been a while. But, something happens, some kind of accident, and he kind of disappears, right? So the sequel takes place in the timeline about 20 years later, right? And I don't think I'm spoiling anything here to say, it's in the title, Eddie Lives, right? So, Eddie Wilson is still alive. He's been kind of hiding out under an alternate identity. Everybody presumed that he was dead, and he's not. He's just like a construction worker, just doing his thing, doing the day-to-day grind, right? And he gets basically coaxed back into playing music and ultimately decides to make a bit of a comeback. So this movie, just what I love about it, and I don't know, look, it's not a great movie. I'll be the first to say that. It's pretty cheesy. It's not a great movie, but it means something to me personally, right? I've got a lot of nostalgia for this. I used to watch this. I used to play on cable TV all the time when it first came out, and I used to watch it all the time. And the music in this movie is really good, or at least, I certainly thought it was at the time, and it still kind of holds up. The music in this movie is decent. In fact, better than the music from the first film, if you ask me. So, but yeah, this is just it's a fun ride. It's one I really enjoy. As a musician, it hits all the right notes for me. Eddie Wilson, this kind of presumed dead, long lost rock star who makes a comeback under his alternate identity. He tries to not even tell anybody that he's Eddie Wilson, right? He tries to kind of make his name on his own as like a nobody, right? And but of course that doesn't hold as you would expect. So this has just always been a fun movie for me. I've always enjoyed it. I know I've rambled on about it quite a bit here, so you guys are probably scratching your head going, what the fuck, Fuzz? Where did this movie come from? But yeah, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. I have just always loved this movie. And yeah, so if you've never seen it and you did see the first one and you were a fan of the first film, you should definitely check out the sequel, because I think the sequel is far better than the first film was. So yeah, so for my first one, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. Next up, we've got a Vinegar Syndrome release, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. When we're talking bad movies, Vinegar Syndrome definitely has probably more than its fair share of those. But I'm talking about a great 4K release called Tammy and the T-Rex. Love this one. This is such a funny film. It's totally off the wall and really out there, but, totally bonkers. But it's so much fun. I personally just got a kick out of this one. Of course, it's not clear what the actual title for this film is. I think it's supposed to be called Tammy and the T-Rex, right? But I ended up with this comic slipcover variant that calls it Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex. So, and I think that might actually be what shows up on the credits for the film when you first watch it. So I can't remember, but this is a great movie. A lot of fun. Of course, I missed out on the cool lenticular slipcover that originally came with this. It was this artwork, but it was lenticular, right? But I managed to score the comic slipcover variant, so I was happy about that. But really, really fun film. Yeah, it's not the greatest film, right? Let's be real, it's pretty cheesy and pretty hokey. But, it's got Paul Walker in it. Early performance from Paul Walker. Got Denise Richards in this. Essentially, Paul Walker's character, he's a teenager that basically some stuff happens, some stuff goes down, and his mind, his consciousness ends up being like transferred over to a mechanical T-Rex that then goes on to wreak havoc everywhere. So, and I'll just leave it at that. There's more to the story, of course, than that, but such a fun film. And, I really like that Vinegar Syndrome included the uncut version. So you get all the gore, right? I guess there was a heavily cut PG-13 version that that was what was airing in a lot of places for many years. But Vinegar Syndrome has restored this bad boy to its original uncut form. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So if you've never seen Tammy and the T-Rex, I would definitely recommend checking it out. If you like cheesy, so bad it's good B movies. And that's, I think that's what we're talking about here, so bad it's good. Although you might have a different opinion. If those of you who've seen this one, maybe you don't even think it's bad. Maybe you think it's fine. But, it just struck me as one of those films that I could see the average casual moviegoer, really scratching their head over a film like this. So, but a lot of fun, really over the top. And yeah, if you've never seen it, Tammy and the T-Rex from Vinegar Syndrome, check it out. Next up for number 3, we've got a film by the great director Tobe Hooper. I'm talking about Life Force here. This is a fun one. I love this one, and this is the Scream Factory release. And yeah, this film is kind of bonkers as well, but it totally bombed at the box office. It did not do well at all. It didn't work out too well for Tobe Hooper, but I think it's an enjoyable ride. I think it's a lot of fun. Essentially, it is about an alien, a space vampire, if you will, that ends up on Earth and sucking the life force out of everyone she encounters. So, I mean, that's the setup right there in a nutshell, and I won't say too much beyond that. But it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. Now, with this Scream Factory release, it's a great looking 4K. It looks really good. The only downside is you don't get the director's cut on 4K. You only get the theatrical cut of this film on 4K. The director's cut is included, but it's included on a separate Blu-ray. It's not part of the 4K deal here. So that's the only downside. I do wish they had put that director's cut in 4K because the director's cut is a better version of the film. But still, it still looks good, and the 4K looks good for the theatrical version. So yeah, just a fun film. Cannon Films release. This was definitely the kind of thing that was typical of Cannon Films, I would say. But it's cheesy. It's kind of bonkers, a little bit over the top, but just a lot of fun, and a film that I find truly entertaining. So if you've never seen Life Force, yeah, maybe check it out. Okay, next up, moving on to number 4, we have another Vinegar Syndrome release here, and this is an older one. I think Vinegar Syndrome put this out about 10 years ago, but it's a totally bonkers, totally off-the-wall movie, and I'm talking about Raw Force from 1982 or 1981. I'm not sure which year it came out. On the back of the Blu-ray here, it actually says 1981, but when I looked it up on IMDb, it said 1982. So I'm guessing it was probably released at the end of the year in 1981 or something like that. But just a fun movie. I mean, it's not a great movie. It's pretty out there, but it's a whole lot of fun. And in fact, let me just read a little bit from the synopsis on the back here for you, because I mean, it's pretty. I think this will catch your attention once you hear this. It's kind of a genre mashup, right? It combines martial arts with horror. Here's what it says about this film, and you can decide for yourself what you think of this idea. Welcome to Warriors Island, burial ground of disgraced martial arts masters. When the Burbank Kung Fu Club travels to this mysterious island, they quickly find themselves facing the bloodthirsty vengeance of flesh-ripping kung fu fighting zombies, gun-toting white slave traders, and a band of strange monks who may be the only key to explaining the madness. I mean, does that sound fun or what? Huh? It is just a crazy movie, and it's a lot of fun. It's as crazy as it sounds, but it's a very enjoyable ride. Like I said, not a great movie, but it's definitely an entertaining ride and an amusing ride at the same time. It's kind of got a little bit of everything in it for you. So yeah, fun film. Moving on to my number 5 choice, we have a Michael Bay film from 2013, and I am talking about Pain and Gain. You got Mark Wahlberg in this one, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. This movie is hilarious. It really is. I was cracking up the first time I saw this. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like a comedy action thriller kind of all together, but it's more comedy and action than thriller for sure. Essentially, Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne "The Rock" play these personal trainers, like bodybuilder personal trainers, right? And they decide to pull off this kidnapping extortion scheme. The problem is they're not very smart. They're really dumb. And everything that could possibly go wrong when they're trying to pull this off does go wrong. It's really pretty hilarious. Now, apparently, this was actually based on a true story, or at least in part, although the film did get some criticism for taking some liberties with the story, adding some fictional stuff in there that apparently didn't really happen. So just keep that in mind. There are made-up characters in this, and some made-up events that did not apparently actually occur. But that aside, if you just treat this like a fictional story, I think you'll be better off. I wouldn't go into it trying to figure out which parts are true and which parts are not. Just treat it as a fictional story and have some fun with it, because it is really a funny movie. And it's got some action as well, but it's hilarious, and just a fun film that I really enjoyed. So if you've never seen Pain and Gain from Michael Bay, something a little different from Michael Bay here. This isn't his usual type of film, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and very amusing. So if you've never seen it, check it out, Pain and Gain. All right, next up, we've got a film from 1990, another Vinegar Syndrome release here, and I'm talking about The Invisible Maniac. This is a good one too. Well, actually, this one's pretty bad, but it's fun, right? This one's so bad, I think it gets like a 4.3 on IMDb, right? So this one it's not a good movie, but it's one of those kind of so bad it's good kind of movies. The acting is terrible on this. It's really bad. But you do have a pretty high boob count, for those who are into that. But yeah, not good acting. Essentially, it is a high school teacher who was a former world-renowned, respected physicist. He develops this invisibility serum, but he's got a few screws loose, right? This guy is not mentally stable, let's put it that way, right? So yeah, he kind of loses his mind, and then things get really interesting. This high school teacher starts using his invisibility serum on himself and wreaking all kinds of havoc. So if that sounds like something you might be into, then you might want to check this one out. But I do want to give you fair warning, this is not a good film. It's pretty bad. But I know I'm not the only one who likes it. I know my buddy Ken over at Mid-Level Media, he likes this one. I've heard him talk about this one before. So there's at least one other person out there besides me who actually likes this film. And I'm sure there are, plenty of Vinegar Syndrome fans out there that do appreciate this. And by the way, this is in 4K. I don't think I mentioned that, which, is pretty cool when you think of them doing a 4K release for a film like this. This is, giving... As far as I'm concerned, when you do something in 4K, that's kind of like giving the film the royal treatment. You're putting a little something extra special into the film when you're doing a 4K restoration. That's just the way I look at it, right? So you do get some reversible cover art there. Check that out. And which I always appreciate, right? You gotta love reversible cover art. That way you get something different on the case, on the insert art, than you do on the slip cover. So I always appreciate that. So yeah, just a lot of fun. Despite how bad it is, I still enjoy it. So yeah, if you've never seen Invisible Maniac and this sounds like your cup of tea, yeah, maybe check this one out at some point. Moving on to my number 7, we got another film here that, another Canon Films movie, that some of you might actually be a fan of this one, but, it's still not a good movie. It's pretty bad, but it's fun. And I'm talking about American Ninja, starring Michael Dudikoff and the great Steve James. In fact, Steve James, I think, is one of the better things about this film. I love Steve James, always enjoy seeing him pop up in many of these B movies out there. But yeah, this is fun, but it's it's cheesy. The dialogue is terrible and not a good script at all. The stunts, the fight sequences are I think they're pretty weak, right? Like, I did not get the impression from watching this that Michael Dudikoff was a trained martial artist. Some of the stuff he did was pretty softball and, like I said, pretty weak. Didn't seem like really anything that impressive. And, you can tell, like, if they're using swords or whatever in this movie, you can kind of tell the blades are fake. It's pretty cheesy. It's obvious that this is a low-budget movie. But it is fun. It's an enjoyable ride if you like these kind of low budget, cheesy action flicks. Then you might enjoy this one quite a bit, assuming you haven't already seen it. I know a lot of people have seen this one before. I've only seen this one and the second one. I haven't seen 3 or 4. I like the second one actually a little bit more than this one. I thought it was a little bit better, but the first time I watched this, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's not a great movie, but it was still fun. So yeah, American Ninja for my number 7 here. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you can be alerted when I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the video as well. It really does help with the channel's visibility out there on YouTube and the algorithm and all that. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And while we're on the subject of canon films, let's do another ninja movie. I'm talking about Ninja 3, The Domination. Another one that's just, really off the wall and kind of out there, but so much fun. You got Lucinda Dickey here in this Canon Films release, who plays like an aerobics instructor who gets possessed by an evil ninja. So you got ninjas, you got possession, and ultimately you have an exorcism in this as well. So a bit of a genre mashup as well for this film, but just a lot of fun. It's cheesy, it's pretty bad, but you get Sho Kosugi in this, who actually is a real martial artist. So in my view, you can't go wrong with anything Sho Kosugi is in. Lucinda Dickey, she's not that great. It's not a great movie, but it's fun. So yeah, I like this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. If you're a fan of ninjas and martial arts type stuff, and if you also like genre mashups that kind of mix, horror with martial arts, this might be one you want to check out. Just don't go into it expecting anything too artsy or cinematic or highbrow, right? Because that is definitely not what this film is. Okay, moving on to my number 9, we've got an Arrow video release, a 1987 film called Hell High. It's kind of a revenge horror type film. You've got some teenagers and that are causing a lot of problems for this particular teacher. This particular teacher has a bit of a history and ultimately ends up snapping and losing it. And then it gets really interesting from there. So, but that's all I'm really going to say about the story. It's pretty basic stuff. I got to warn you, the acting in this movie is terrible. It's not good acting at all. It's pretty bad. But I still had fun with the film, right? And I suppose it fits in the category of so bad it's good. This one's pretty bad, but I did enjoy it. I had some fun with it, and you might too if you're into like revenge type, horror type stuff. Yeah, you can have quite a bit of fun with this film if you're in the right mindset for it. So, yeah, if you've never seen Hell High and, a really bad movie with bad acting that's so bad it's good sounds interesting to you, then maybe check this one out. But a great, oh, by the way, this is a Blu-ray from Arrow, just so you know, not a 4K. But great looking, restoration. I had never seen the film before this, so I didn't have anything to compare it to, but, I thought the Blu-ray looked great. So, yeah, so Hell High for my number 9. And for my number 10, now this is a film that I was kind of on the fence about whether I should even include this one on the list, because I don't know how many people actually think of this as a bad movie. I feel like it got a lot of shit when it first came out. A lot of people didn't like it. We're talking about a Michael Mann movie here, all right? The great director Michael Mann. I'm talking about Black Hat from 2015. I thought this was a pretty good movie. A lot of people didn't like it. They gave Michael Mann a really hard time for this one. But I thought it was pretty well done. Even the theatrical cut. I actually thought the theatrical cut was still decent. I suppose it's not going to be as good as the director's cut, which I have not had a chance to watch yet. Apparently the director's cut is a lot better. I do know what they do, the changes they made to the director's cut, and why people like it more. And I agree that those changes were probably the way to go and how it should have been released originally in the theaters. But that's not what we got. So you do get this in 4K. In fact, also includes some reversible cover art. Check that out. and the 4K looks great, right? But you only get the theatrical cut in 4K. You do not get the director's cut. Well, it includes the director's cut, but that is on a separate Blu-ray. They don't actually put the director's cut on 4K. And that's the only downside with this release. I really think they should have put the director's cut on 4K as well. But that said, I did watch the 4K of the theatrical cut, and that was like the first time I'd seen this film all the way through. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good film. I remember a lot of negative criticism from fans and reviewers for this movie. A lot of people didn't like it when it first came out, and that's why I put it on this list. I feel like a lot of people were ripping on this movie, saying it's crap, it's not, Michael Mann can do so much better. But I enjoyed it, and I'm a big Michael Mann fan. Heat and Collateral, great films, right? And when you watch this, you do see all of those signature trademarks of a Michael Mann film. They all appear in here, and it was really cool to see, right? His signature style and aesthetic, yeah, it's all in there, and I just really appreciated that. So if you've never seen Black Hat, I think it's a good movie. Is it one of Michael Mann's best? No, not at all. But it's certainly a hell of a lot better than Public Enemies was. Now that movie, that really did suck. Another Michael Mann movie with starring Johnny Depp. Yeah, Public Enemies. I did not like that movie at all. But this one, a lot better than that, I thought. And if you're a Michael Mann fan and you haven't gotten around to checking this one out, you definitely owe it to yourself to at least give it a watch at some point. So yeah, Black Hat for my number 10. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my list of 10, but I do have just a few honorable mentions to kind of breeze through real quick here. The first honorable mention is not just a single film, it's a whole franchise. And I wanted to address this because I feel like it's kind of gotten a bad rap. I'm talking about the Resident Evil movies, right? Here we go. Resident Evil, right? And I've got all, 6 films? In this nice 4K box set, which is very cool, by the way. I love the, you get separate cases for each one. Let me show you this just briefly and give you an idea of what they look like. But each of these 4K discs come with their own little kind of digipack case, which I thought was pretty cool. For each film. You get a Blu-ray and a 4K of each. So yeah, cool little box set. I always thought the set was pretty cool. Now, the films, right? I think you can probably make the case the first film is the best film, but I think they're all kind of fun. I think this franchise got a lot of crap for being like, style over substance, right? Lots of style, but not a whole lot of substance. In fact, I think that's a common criticism of Paul W.S. Anderson in general, the director. A lot of people think films look great, but not a whole lot of substance to them, not a very good story, right? I can understand that criticism, but I still like these movies. I still think they're a lot of fun. They're definitely kind of a turn off your brain kind of deal, right? And I'll be the first to admit, once we get past the second film, installments 3 through 6, yeah, they all kind of blur together for me. I can't always remember what happens in what film, right? So yeah, there is that, but they're an enjoyable ride. They're entertaining, and that's why I like them. So yeah, Resident Evil, love the Resident Evil movies, just a lot of fun. Even if other people aren't all that fond of the sequels, I can still have fun with them. Another honorable mention, I got to give it up for Halloween Ends. I thought this was pretty fun. I thought it was a decent Halloween installment, right? I saw a lot of parallels between this film and Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And Halloween 3 is actually one of my favorite films in the entire franchise, next to John Carpenter's original, right? And I thought there were some cool things they did in this film that I don't know. I feel like even though a lot of people ripped on this film, a ton of people were just slamming this film, said it was like the worst thing ever, totally hyperbolic, by the way. But, it's not that bad. It's not bad at all. In fact, it's really entertaining. It's actually a pretty competently made film. I mean, there's flaws. There's definitely some flaws in it. I don't want to, don't get me wrong here. I don't want to give the impression that I think this is a perfect gem. It is definitely not. There are some issues with it, but it was fun. I had a good time with it. And I think people were just maybe reading some people, I should be fair here. I think some people were just reading way too much into this and, forgot to just like kick back and have fun with the film. Right. And I do think in, maybe 10 years, 15 years, Halloween fans are going to be reevaluating this film and they're going to come back and they're going to have a different view of it later on. I really do believe that. Kind of like the same thing happened with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, right? People used to hate that. And then it started over time getting the respect it deserves. Tommy Lee Wallace, Tom Atkins. You can't go wrong with stuff like that. Halloween 3 is a great film. So I think this one, people could feel similarly about this one once some time has passed, maybe a decade or more, right? But I did enjoy Halloween Ends. I thought it was a fun installment. Certainly no worse than some of the other sequels in my book, like Halloween Resurrection. Yeah, that's one I don't know how many more times in my life I'll even watch Halloween Resurrection. But this one, I can definitely say I'll be watching again in the future. So yeah, Halloween Ends. Next up, another honorable mention, which I talked about recently, but I'll bring it up again briefly. The Matrix Resurrections. I think this is pretty fun. This is another one that got totally slammed and ripped on by people. A lot of people got very hyperbolic about this, which honestly kind of surprised me because I don't know what people were expecting from, a Wachowski film, right? I mean, this turned out to be pretty much exactly the kind of thing I expected Wachowski to do with this story. So I personally love the whole meta thing. The way I saw it, it was essentially the director giving Warner Brothers a big giant middle finger in their own movie, right? And that I thought was just solid gold, absolute solid gold, right? I mean, the director is ripping on Warner Brothers in the movie, right? And doesn't exactly make Warner Brothers look very good. So I actually like that whole, fourth wall breaking kind of meta thing that they did here. But I think this film has a lot of layers to it. To me, this is not the kind of film that you can just watch once and get everything there is to get from it. I find that repeat viewings actually are very rewarding for this, right? You get a lot more out of it the second or third time you watch it than you might get the first time you watch it. So, yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's a good film. Of course, it's not as good as some of the other Matrix films. Certainly not as good in my book as the first two, but I still like it, and it's absolutely a worthy entry in this franchise. So yeah, Matrix Resurrections. And I also have another Vinegar Syndrome here for you, Ticks. Now, this one has actually been pretty popular among a lot of Vinegar Syndrome fans, right? A lot of Vinegar Syndrome collectors have said they really like this one. And so, your own mileage may vary. You may not even consider this to be much of a bad movie, right? But I don't think it's a very good movie, right? But I had a lot of fun with it. And, you got Clint Howard here, you got Seth Green, you got some other people as well. But it's like a creature flick with bugs, right? Ticks. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's the acting's not great. It's the writing's not great. Yeah, it's not a great film. I think you can definitely make the case this is a pretty bad movie, but you can still have a lot of fun with it. So if you've never seen Ticks, and by the way, this is 4K, I think. Let me at the slip cover there. I don't know if you can still get the hard box and reversible cover art there, of course. Nice looking slip too, Vinegar Syndrome absolutely delivers on their slip covers. And I just love the colors on this and how vibrant and vivid this looks. Very cool. And then, yeah, a rigid hard box. Gotta love that. I think these might still be available from Vinegar Syndrome. I'm not totally sure about that. I don't know if they ever sold out of the hard box editions, but I think it might still be available. So, yeah, check it out. If you've never seen Ticks and you like creature flicks, bugs and that kind of thing, then you might want to give this one a try. And for my last honorable mention, I got to talk about a film that it's not a great film, right? As I've said with a number of these before, but this one has a lot of nostalgia value for me personally. I saw this film when I was probably 9 years old in the theater with my dad. And I'm talking about Hangar 18. This came out in 1980. And yeah, I saw it in the theater. And, you know, it's not a good movie. The acting's pretty bad. It's kind of, it almost plays like a made for TV movie. And when I say made for TV, I don't mean like made for TV in the modern era. I mean like what made for TV was back in 1980, right? But if you like aliens and Roswell type, you know, government cover up, conspiracy theory kind of stuff, you might actually dig this one. But yeah, it's not a great film. You got Gary Collins in it. Like he's like the main lead actor. Now, I don't know. I was never, you know, a huge Gary Collins fan, but not a whole lot to say about this one. It's worth checking out if you've never seen it, but you know, it's pretty bad. It's the main reason I bought it is just because of my childhood connection to it. But I don't know. I mean, I like it, but of all the titles on this list, this is the one I probably like the least, even though I can still have some fun with it. This is, of all the titles I've talked about today, this is the one I probably like the least. But I had to get it in my collection just for the nostalgia. So yeah, Hangar 18. Let me know what you guys think of this film. Do you guys remember this one? I'd love to hear from you in the comments and you know, share your memories of Hangar 18 with me. You know, I almost feel kind of silly throwing this one out there, and it's why I didn't include it in the main list, because you know, it is pretty bad. But yeah, let me know what you guys think out there of Hangar 18 or any of these others as well. Okay, so that about wraps it up for 10 bad movies that I actually dig. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I always love hearing from you guys, and I definitely want to hear your opinions on some of these movies on this list. What do you think of my choices here? And do you have any choices of your own that you would like to add? Yeah, make sure you leave me some feedback down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, maybe share the video if you're feeling so inclined. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.